Hey, it's good to be with you guys. You having a good day? Good. I'm glad to hear that. It was 2 years ago I was here, which is hard to believe because I feel like it was just like a year ago. In fact, I thought it was a year ago till this morning. They said it was 2 years ago, so I didn't even realize that. But it is really good to be with you guys. If you have a Bible, you can go to Genesis chapter 29. We'll get there in just a minute. I want to talk to you about this idea today that I've kind of been thinking about quite a bit, and I wrote about it a little bit in Empty Promises. But I think that there's a tendency that we have in Christianity to want to focus on sin management. Outside of the church, we would call this behavioral modification. We have this idea that we want to focus on sin management. So we tend to, in the church, and I've certainly been guilty of this over the years as a pastor, to spend a lot of time telling you guys, hey, don't do this, don't do that. You know, whatever you do, don't do this. And we spend a lot of time telling you don't do this and don't do that, and working on this idea of sin management. The problem with that is when you really study the Bible, when you really look at Jesus, what you begin to discover is that Jesus did not come to edit our behavior. He came to transform our heart. And there's a big difference between editing someone's behavior and transforming a heart. And so what I want to do today in the few minutes we have is talk about this idea of idolatry. And the reason I want to talk about idolatry is because idolatry is not only like this major theme all the way throughout the Bible, but idolatry isn't really talking about sin as much as it's talking about the sin beneath the sin. And I want to talk to you about this by the way of just telling you a story out of the Bible, out of Genesis. And the story really starts around Genesis 25, but we'll read out of Genesis 29. It's the story of a guy by the name of Jacob. And you've heard the story of Jacob before. You remember Isaac's his dad and Rachel, and they have twins. And there's Jacob and there's Esau. And Esau's a little bit older than Jacob by, just like a couple minutes. But that was a big deal in this culture because the eldest brother got the birthright. And the birthright meant that they had access to more money. It meant they had access to more power. And so Esau has the birthright. He has, he's going to have the money. He's going to have the power. And then one day, you remember the story, Esau comes back and he's starving to death and he sells his birthright for a bowl of stew, which doesn't make sense to most of us, but that's a whole nother message. And then Jacob's, got the birthright, but he still has to trick his dad out of it. So one day he tricks his dad into giving him the birthright. And when Esau finds out that Jacob, in fact, was given the blessing, he was giving the birthright, Esau vows to kill his brother Jacob. And then Jacob does what all brothers do when your brother vows to kill you. He runs. And so he takes off, and he goes to live with his mom's brother, which would be his uncle Laban. All right, and that's where we'll kind of pick up this story in Genesis 29. It says, now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, which is a kind of very interesting biblical way of saying that she had been hit by the ugly stick, okay? I didn't make that up. The Bible says this, all right? But Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel. Of course he was, and said, I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than some other man stay here with me. So Jacob served to get Rachel, but 7 years, right? 7 years he serves to get Rachel. But they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Now, we think that's like really sweet, and, in our culture, that seems like really romantic, that this guy would work 7 years, right, just to get Rachel. And, we would probably make a movie out of this, or probably star some vampires or something, and, everybody be really excited about it. But this is not romantic, right? This is kind of sick. And Jacob's just kind of messed up. This is 4 times, and obviously things worked a little different back then. This is 4 times the price that someone would typically pay for a bride. So you get to verse 21, and it says, then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, my time is completed. I want to lie with her. He's basically saying, hey, bro, I can't wait, to have sex with your daughter. Give her to me now. Now, I know a lot of you are single, And a lot of you single guys one day are going to do the right thing, and you're going to sit down with your future father-in-law, and you are going to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. I don't give a lot of dating advice, but guys, I would like to encourage you not to use that line right there, okay? Because it's not going to go well for you, okay? Not well at all. But what we have here, this is a really interesting story, because what you have is this young man who is overwhelmed with passion for this one woman. He's overwhelmed with emotional and sexual longing for one woman. Why? Because his life is empty. If you knew anything about Jacob, if you know the backstory, Jacob is a young man who's constantly fighting for his dad's love. His dad favors his other brother, and so his dad doesn't give him a lot of love, doesn't give him a lot of attention, so he spends his whole life trying to earn his dad's love. Some of you know about that emptiness, right? Some of you know about the emptiness of just trying so hard to get your dad's attention. Right? For some of you, it's why you play college sports. For some of you, it's why you came to college in the first place. For some of you, it's why you major in what you major in. You just want, you just want your dad to love you, to give you some attention. That's the way Jacob's life had been. So he feels empty. His brother hates him and is trying to kill him. He has a good relationship with mom, from what we understand from Scripture, but now he's separated from her and doesn't think that he's ever going to see her again. In this culture, they believed that if life was going really well, it meant God loved you and he was pouring his blessings out on you. But if circumstantially things fell apart, it meant that God did not love you. And so because his life is falling apart, he would have made the wrong assumption that God didn't know and God didn't care and God didn't love him. And so he's empty. And he puts all the weight of his longing and his purpose and his meaning in life on this one girl. He thought the acceptance of one person would give him what only God could give him. Now, this is how I define idolatry. Idolatry is just anything you look to give you what only God can give you. Right? Anytime you look to something to give you what only God can give you. So in this case, what's the idol? It's the girl. Right? In this case, he thinks this one person can give him something that only God can give him. And we do this in life with all kinds of different things. You get to verse 22, the story's not over. It says, so Laban, that's his uncle, remember, brought together all the people of the place and he gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah. Do you remember Leah? That's not the right one, right? And gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant. When morning came, there was Leah. Surprise, right? I don't even know how that happens. But Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? So Laban's like, oh, you didn't know? He's like, this is kind of the way it goes, man. The oldest daughter always has to be married first. So you know what Jacob does? He says, all right, that's fine. I'll serve 7 more years if I can marry Rachel. I love what one commentator said about this passage. Think about this. He said, this story is a miniature of our disillusionment. For no matter what we put our hopes in the morning, it's always Leah, never Rachel. And this is the truth of life. That as you go through college and you get out of college and you get into a job and you finally get the corner office and you finally make the amount of money that you want to make and you marry the person of your dreams and you get the house of your dreams, what you'll eventually discover is all of these things that culture in the world tells you you need to be happy, that you need to feel fulfilled, you need to feel like you have any kind of purpose at all, that all of those things, you can achieve every one of them. And you can still feel very empty inside. Why? Because so much of what this world offers us is just an empty promise. It's just empty. In the morning, it's always Leah. It's never Rachel. It's never what you thought it was going to be. So let's drill in just a little bit deeper, all right? All we have time for is just a few minutes to talk about what really is the idol in this particular biblical story, which is the idol of approval. And it's one that I think a lot of us wrestle with, where we live our life trying to gather the self-worth right? We gather our self-worth from the approval of all the different people in our life. And maybe for you, it's the approval of your parents. Maybe for you, it's the approval of a particular professor. Maybe for you, it's approval of your friends. But a lot of us spend our entire life gathering our self-worth by getting certain people to approve of us. And I just want to talk to you for a minute about what happens when you do that. All right, there are two byproducts of living your life gathering your self-worth from the approval of other people. And the first one is this: you will be destined for mediocrity. You're destined for mediocrity. Here's why. When you follow Christ with all of your heart, He's going to call you to do things that sometimes don't make sense to the people around you. All right? So most of us, we're most comfortable when we're traveling in what I call the herd. You're most comfortable when you're moving through life, you're moving through college with people who look like you and dress like you and talk like you, have about the same amount of money as you have or your family has. So we tend to travel in herds. All right? Now, when you're following Christ with all of your heart, with all of your life, He's going to call you to do things that sometimes don't make sense to other people. Right? There are going to be times that He calls you to break off from the herd. So there'll be times that He's going to call you to take a risk that doesn't make sense to the people around you. He's going to call you to do something with your life that maybe doesn't make sense to everybody around you. He's going to call you to stand up for something. He's going to call you to go against the flow. But when He does that and He speaks into your life, what it requires from you is to break off from the herd. Now, you have to understand that when you break off from the herd is going to do what the herd always does. What does the herd always do when you break off from the herd? The herd is going to criticize. That's what the herd does. Now, if you're an individual who gathers their self-worth, right, from the approval of the people around you, when God calls you, you're going to break off from the herd's going to criticize, and what are you going to do? You're going to fall right back in line with the herd. That's why your life will be destined for mediocrity. First time I saw this, I was 21 years old. I was a senior in college. I was serving as a youth pastor at this small church out in the middle of nowhere. And I felt like God was calling me to start a church as a senior in college, which didn't make a lot of sense. Like, who's going to go to a church where a college student is the pastor? And so, but that's what I sensed God calling me to do. And so I resigned from that church. It was my last night at that church, and I'm going to this little party that they held for me, this little reception at the church, because it was my last Sunday. And so they gave me this party. I'm walking out of the church that night. I thought I was the last one there. I thought I was closing the place down. And when I walked by, we had this like church library. And when I walked by the library, there were two of the deacons of our church were in there talking. And when I walked by, I heard my name. And so I stopped to listen. And you can do that. Let's not eavesdropping if you hear your name, all right? I looked it up. It's okay. And so I stopped and I listened. I probably shouldn't have, but they're talking about me. And they're talking about, how, who does Pete think he is? Like, he's 21 years old. How is he going to start a church? He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have like a group of people. He doesn't even know where he's going to start this church. It's going to, and they're just going on and on and on. And listen, everything they were saying was true. But I didn't have like a category in my mind for this at 21. These were two men that I respected a lot. These were two men who 2 hours earlier had their hand on my back praying for the future of my ministry. So I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And so I walked out of that church as fast as I could. Like, I was just trying to hold it in. And I get out into my little car, and I just started crying. And I was like praying to God out loud. I do that a lot in the car. And I was just like, God, they're right. This is going to be a disaster. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt like God was saying to me in that minute, Pete, you've got a really important decision you have to make. Because you need to decide, are you going to spend your life listening to the voice of other people, or are you going to spend your life living for my voice, listening to my voice? And I remember that night, I got out of my car, I got down on my knees in a church parking lot, and I said, God, my life is yours. Whatever you call me to do, wherever you call me to go, I'm in. I'm in. And I think back to that night, I think about, had I listened to those two guys in that church library how different my life would be today. All the unbelievable ministry moments I've been able to be a part of that I would have missed out on had I listened to their voice instead of the voice of my Creator. So just listen, if you live your life listening to the voice of God over the voices of everyone else, they will use a lot of different words to describe your life, but mediocre will not be one of them. I promise. Let me tell you the second thing that often happens when we live our life gathering our self-worth from the approval of other people is not only will you be destined for mediocrity, but you're also going to be destined for exhaustion. Because trying to control your image, right, so you can get everybody in your life to approve of you will wear you out. And I battle with this. I still battle with this to this day. I want to control everyone's image, right? I want to control, actually, my image. I want to control what they think about my image, right? Because I want people to like me. Because I fall into this trap. I fall into this area of idolatry all the time of wanting other people and gathering my self-worth from what this group thinks about me or what this group thinks about me. And so it's this little subtle trap that happens. And so I catch myself sometimes when I'm giving a sermon at our church. Sometimes I tell stories that make me sound like a better husband than I actually am. Sometimes I tell stories that make me sound like a better father than I actually am, right? Why? Because I want people to approve of me. And one of the things that has really helped me with this, with fighting back against this image management type stuff, is my kids. I have 3 boys, and they don't give a rip what you think about them. They don't give a rip what you think about their dad, and so they just kind of live their life. I'll tell you a quick story. This was a while back ago, and I had my oldest son and my middle son at the pool, and we were hanging out, and we were just, there was a Sunday evening, and we were done with church for the day, and my wife was at home with our youngest, and so my middle son, he has the smallest bladder in the world, and so he had to go to the bathroom 5 times. I'm trying to just relax by the pool and read it's a Christian book, if that helps the story at all. And so I'm just kind of reading this book. And so this is the 6th time my son has come up to me and said, "Dad, I have to go pee bad." I'm like, "Dude, you're killing me. This is the 6th time." And you have to take him up to this pool house. Our neighborhood has, this common pool. And so it's Sunday afternoon. All of my neighbors are there. They all know what I do. I'm always trying to control my image around them. And so I said to my son, Gage, and this, just so you know, this is horrible parenting advice, but I said, "Son, this one time, why don't you just pee in the pool?" I know this isn't wise. You don't have to send me an email telling me this, right? I know this was not the right call, but I was just done. So I said, "Just go pee in the pool, just one time." So I go back to read my really good Christian book, and about 30 seconds later, I hear all these gasps all around the pool. Everybody's going "Oh!" And so I look up from my really good Christian book, and there's my son, Gage, standing on the edge of the pool. He's peeing into the pool. He has his trunks down to his ankle. So I throw down my really good Christian book. I run over there as fast as I can, and I get down on one knee. I'm like, "Gage, son, you can't do that." Now, you have to understand, by this point, it's dead silence around the pool. Everybody's just standing there staring, except there's one kid still in the pool. He's trying to get out as fast as he can. And I said, "Son, you can't do that." Out loud, he says, "Dad, you told me to pee in the pool." And so, you ever have those moments, where you feel like everybody can see right through you, and they're judging you, what kind of human being are you? What kind of dad are you, right? And we've all had those moments, right? Why? Why do those moments stick with us? Why do they define us? Because we work so hard to create this image, don't we? I'll tell you the word I'm so sick of hearing in the church today. It's the word authenticity. It's so odd to me that an organization, a movement like the church, right, that uses that word authenticity so much, but absolutely has no idea most of the time what it really means. Authenticity is the cry of all, but it is the game of few. And I define authenticity as just the practice of letting go who we think we should be in order to embrace who God really created us to be. And do you know why so very few people live like this? Because it takes a tremendous amount of courage. You will be constantly bombarded every day of your life by a culture that's going to try to make you anything but who God has created you to be. And letting go of who you think you should be in order to embrace who God created you to be will be one of the most courageous battles that you will ever fight in your life. Choosing to be real over being liked will not be the safest thing that you do today, but it might be the most God-honoring thing that you do today. It takes courage to be authentic because it takes courage to not be perfect. It takes courage to be authentic because it takes courage to risk rejection and ask that girl out. It takes courage to be real about your weaknesses, knowing that you will never live up to people's expectations. It takes courage to break away from the herd. It takes courage to say, I love you first. It takes courage to try something that you don't know if you'll really be good at it. It takes courage to create art. It takes courage to ask for help. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. And I'll tell you, so many times in my life, I have not been full of courage. And I have failed miserably at being the person and being the man that God created me to be. And every time I try to be somebody that I'm not, I miss a really key moment where I think Jesus is trying to work through me. A couple years ago, I hit rock bottom in my ministry. I was burned out. I wanted to quit. I remember asking God, I'll do anything. Just please, I don't want to be a pastor anymore. I'll do anything but this, just anything. And I was really burned out. I remember it was a Saturday night. I had just performed a wedding. I'm on my way home. I was thinking about the sermon I had to deliver the next day. I'm so burned out. I'm stressed out. And I'm sitting at this red light on Hillsborough Road in front of Green Hills Mall. You know that red light? I'm sitting right there, and I'm praying again out loud to God. And I'm a basket case. I'm like, God, please, I want to do anything. I hate this. And the problem for me is, again, I'd fallen into this trap of idolatry, and I was so exhausted trying to keep all these different groups of people happy with me. And I'm like, God, I can't do it anymore. I can't make all of these people happy with me. I can't be a million different things to all these different people. And I'm sitting at this red light. I'm crying so hard that I have to take these sunglasses off. Now, let me tell you the story behind these sunglasses. About 2 months before this moment at the red light, I'm in Orange Beach, and I lost my sunglasses. And so I walk into one of those sunglass stores that has 10,000 pairs of sunglasses. And it's overwhelming. I'm looking at all these sunglasses. I'm like, I don't know. I'll take this pair. And so I walk out of the sunglass store, and I have these sunglasses on. And my wife is standing outside the sunglass store, and she starts laughing. And I was like, what's the matter with the sunglasses? She's like, I don't know. They look really feminine on you. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I'd already paid for them, so I was going to roll with these glasses. And so we go to dinner, and it's me and my wife and my 3 boys, and we took a picture of our family at dinner. It was outside, so I had these sunglasses on. So I tweeted the picture, and 30 seconds later, I get a text from my best friend who's like, dude, where did you get the chick glasses at? And so I just want you guys to know, I understand these are not the best glasses in the world, but they're my glasses, right? So I'm sitting there at the red light. I'm crying so hard I have to take the glasses off so I can wipe my eyes. And when I do, I notice something I had never seen before. You guys won't be able to see this, but on the inside of the glasses, in really, really 6 font, it says PS 18:2, which stands for Psalms 18:2. I was like, whoa, not only are these chick glasses, but they are Christian chick glasses. It's like God's talking to me through my glasses. So I'm like, I had this exact Bible in my front seat because I just in the wedding. So I looked up this verse, and it said this, Psalms 18:2. This is the word that God gave me that night, sitting there, right there in that truck. It said, the Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my Savior. My God is my rock in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, my place of safety. And I realized in that moment I was doing it all over again. I was running to everything and anything except for God. And maybe that's where you're at today. where you're chasing after something you shouldn't be chasing after. You're looking at something to give you what only God can give you. And maybe it's approval like Jacob, but maybe it has to do with money. Maybe it has to do with a job title. Maybe it has to do with a certain major. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever it is, I can promise you this. If it's anything other than Jesus Christ, it's going to leave you empty. Let's pray.